Hello from wintry Melbourne lockdown. I'm surprised in the best possible way to have won the Phoenix Picture Book Award for The Lost Thing and feel truly honoured to be receiving it. Being over here in Australia, I didn't actually know about this award until being notified, but even regardless of that personal luck, I'm so pleased to hear of its existence. What a brilliantly sensible award this is, doing exactly the thing that any commendation must set out to do, above and beyond any praise or congratulation, any illusion of competition in the arts, to simply draw an audience's attention to something good that might otherwise be overlooked. Interestingly, this is something that my story is all about: overlooked oddities. Giving a work of art time to settle and find its readership over a decent period of time before casting a judgment is a wonderful idea, alas, one in short supply in contemporary culture, with its increasing emphasis on immediate popularity, openings, launches, box office weekends, market trends, comments, and other fleeting likes. I appreciate the judges' insightful comments too. It's so rewarding to know a work has apparently been studied under a magnifying glass, not unlike the manner in which it was produced. As my first self-authored picture book, The Lost Thing has a special place in my heart. It's true that it did not win a major award in its year of publication, but I've found that after 25 years of writing and illustration that this is no bad sign. It can sometimes mean that the work is sufficiently unusual to defy familiar criteria of excellence. It needs time to carve its own space. Certainly The Lost Thing was a kind of cult picture book here in Australia for some time, largely unknown, but with terrific support from my original publisher Lothian Books, especially my editor Helen Chamberlain, and later by the small but enthusiastic science fiction and children's literature community in Perth and Melbourne, without whose support The Lost Thing would remain just that, a lost thing. 20 years on, it is widely studied by students at all levels, from primary to tertiary, and that's a use that I never expected. Why is it that young people especially become so fascinated by this story of a lost creature in a bureaucratic city? I think it may be because I was a young person when I wrote it at the age of 25, with quite a good understanding of the anxieties and insecurities that run rife at that time of life, one which is often naively touted to be wonderful. I was mostly unemployed, struggling to find work as an illustrator, quite alone and somewhat disillusioned about my chosen path as an artist, basically feeling quite lost. What was the meaning of this writing and illustration nonsense? What was the role of art in society? What is the use of funny drawings and weird stories? And why, at the time, did the conservative Australian government of the day and the community that widely supported it seem so equally resistant to arts funding and the fate of refugees, as they happen to be yet again, sadly, across the globe? Might there be a connection between these two prejudices? Perhaps it can be summed up fairly simply: it's really hard to ask imaginative questions about the lives of others, whether about the need to challenge societal norms through artistic discontent or to empathise with a person disenfranchised, unable to access those norms in the first place. An inability to comprehend difference and different points of view, so often the hallmark of politics these days. A sheer, deep, and even rigorously defended lack of human imagination. Our Prime Minister of the time, who no one talks about anymore, by the way, which is interesting, said in an interview that his vision of Australia was a place that was simply comfortable and relaxed, which I found horrifying on some level but couldn't quite figure out why. The phrase struck in my mind like a thorn. Surely that's a reasonable ambition. Who doesn't want to be comfortable and relaxed? I myself grew up in a nice beach suburb of Western Australia, where that may have well been the local motto. Writing and illustrating The Lost Thing was for me a kind of personal inquiry, questioning myself, trying to understand why being comfortable and relaxed, namely unchallenged by the problems of the world, insulated, isolated, everything in its right place, could be a dream for some and a nightmare for others, depending on which side of the conceptual wall you happen to find yourself. I'm sure in the United States at the moment, The Lost Thing may well have its own resonance, particularly the so-called Federal Department of Odds and Ends as the epitome of government dysfunction and spin, a denial of crisis so deep it cannot even know what to call itself. It cannot even see itself. That all said, I did not set out to create a political work, but something far more personal, more odd, more tricky even for myself to understand. And I like that after all these years, the lost thing still looks weird to me. And it's been interesting to see how this modest picture book, with the subtitle A Tale for Those with More Important Things to Pay Attention to, has come to be interpreted according to a variety of situations, mostly very personal ones for readers. Many readers with physical and intellectual disabilities, for instance, have responded strongly to this story, identifying with a lost creature that struggles to find a place in a world that cannot recognise its value. The value of simply being different. Others having seen this book about race, gender, illness, poverty, animal rights, so many things I never really thought about myself at the time of writing it. Such is the power of reading, always in the hands of the reader. The author just sets the stage, turns on the lights and says, action. The reader does the real work. Many thanks to the Children's Literature Association and the Phoenix Picture Book Award judges. I deeply appreciate your consideration of my work, but moreover, of so many other wonderful works of literature that so quietly but persistently grow in our consciousness over the years. Best wishes to you all in these difficult times as we do our best to imagine the lives of others, especially those unseen. Thank you very much.